Now, back to Church of the Masses with Barbara Nicolosi.
Hello, welcome back. This is Church of the Masses on the Virgin Most Powerful Radio Network. This is the radio show. It's kind of unique, I think, in all of media. We talk about the intersection of faith and culture. I am both an artist slash writer and a committed Catholic and an educator. So kind of bring together all those things. And so I like to spend every episode highlighting the work of somebody who's out there in the church, not cursing the darkness, actually trying to give a gift of culture and beauty to the people of our time and the church of the future. And our guest today is somebody who's doing that. He's absolutely at the center of, hopefully, a new renaissance in sacred art in the church. Please welcome Enzo Salveggi. Hi, Enzo. How are you?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Barbara.
Yes, it's great to have you on our little radio show here. And the reason I invited Enzo was as a little promo to this conference we're going to have on August 17th here in Hollywood at the Mears Center at the First Presbyterian Church of Hollywood. It's a 20th anniversary celebration for Act One, which is the ministry I founded in Hollywood to help people make a good start as writers and producers in Hollywood. And so part of our 20th anniversaries, we're having kind of what have we learned? And Enzo is going to be talking to my community, alumni, other faculty, et cetera, about religious metaphor and visual imagery. So the idea when I was talking to him, and I said, oh, wow, we should have you on our show. And then, Enzo, I find out that you are going to be renovating or leading up, I guess, the design of the renovation at my parish, which is Our Lady of Grace here in Covina. Isn't that funny? Little small world there, but it's that my husband and I attend the Anglican Ordinariate Parish, which is we're not former Anglicans. We're just desperate Catholics in the wasteland that is Los Angeles Archdiocese. So we found this wonderful community, and we've been worshiping with them for 2 or 3 years now. So anyway, so welcome. So Endo, give my audience a little sense of where you come from and how you and what you do.
So I was born here in the United States, and I grew up in Italy, and then I came back as a child, did up to high school and a little bit of college, and then went back for college back to Europe. And so I really kind of spent half my life here and half there. And when I came back, there was a transition period of really figuring out what to do. And then I thought, why don't I do what I've always really wanted to do, which was, even since childhood, was to, and at that time I thought it would be as an architect, but as that developed and evolved, it really turns out that I'm there to work with architects and for architects. And so what we do, what I do in particular, is play art director and designer. So if I'm consulting with a firm, then I will help them correct some of the work or introduce some ideas, modify others. That's as a consultancy. And let's say, starting on my own right, I will design pieces and then find artists or artisans, craftsmen that are able to interpret that properly, authentically, and provide the client with a beautiful result. And the goal, obviously, is in liturgical work is the glory of God and the triumph of the church and the saints. It seemed to be a bad word for 30, 40 years there, but I think that is still an important concept. And in recent days, actually, an interesting issue has come up. I saw Bishop Barron was talking about how I think the figure is 70% of Catholics, or people who call themselves Catholics, don't believe in the real presence. And we have to wonder, why is that? The bishop brings up catechesis and apologetics as a real issue, but I would also submit that the spaces and the art and the expressions that we've used really in liturgy, in church, in the sacred arts, or lack thereof, has informed our mind, has informed our soul, has informed the way we look at things. And so ultimately it's also an apostolate. And so the way that my company is called Heritage Liturgical, and it's in all my documentation, it's in my literature. We are a service to the priesthood. And if we are not a service to the priesthood, then ultimately it's just a business. But it's not just a business. There's a definite spiritual component to the art, which has to be faithful, which has to be authentic, and ultimately it has to be humble, and the artist has to be humble. And so much as, insofar as he disappears, then that allows the truth to come forward.
No, it's just so many things you said there are so fascinating, and I think that I could pick up on so many of them. I mean, let's pull back a little bit to your formation. So how much of growing up in Italy, among their beautiful, beautiful buildings and churches there, formed you for what you're doing now?
Well, it forms you unconsciously, and then you look back and you kind of start figuring out, oh, that's why I believe what I believe. I think most people, we don't question ourselves, and I certainly didn't. Why do I believe the things I believe? Why do I think that's right? Why do I think that's good? Europe, Christian Europe, is a quilt, and at the center of each town is this pin, right? So like a button on a tufted quilt, right? And at the center of that is a church. And what is in that church? It's the best that community had to offer. And whether that's very simple, whether that's very grand, small, or large, it forms you, because the whole town, and even to this day, if you're in an older town, you still feel the centering of the entire space, right, that you're living in around that sacred point. And it's something that you look back on, and it to me it's really amazing to see how much of that informs you as you grow, and especially if you have an aptitude for it, perhaps even the right people around you that help foster that. It formed me.
Yeah, I'm struck by one of the things I know with my own family. My father used to have us watch classic comedies when we were kids. We're talking Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello and the Keystone Cops. And here, it was ridiculous in one sense, because here we were, like 7 or 8 years old, and all of our friends were talking about Scooby-Doo, and we were talking about Laurel and Hardy, But having said that, my father's strategy was, if you expose kids to greatness, then they will lose their taste for banality and ugliness.
Exactly.
And so I think that what you're pointing to is that just being around that stuff gives you a sense of taste you may not even be able to articulate, especially as a young person. But that one of the problems that we have in the church in this country is so much banality everywhere that the kids, our young people, they don't have any, they're not getting a sense of taste refined from the church. In fact, I would say that the art in the church today in most places in this country is among the ugliest, art that you see.
Yeah,
I think
what I always tell the family, look for the ugliest building in a city, and that's the Catholic Church. That you're supposed to walk into when you just want to run away. Mm-hmm. But Barbara, I want to say something. It's not just the United States. In Europe, in Italy, in the south of Italy, right? What people consider to be a very Christian, like a very Catholic. Mm-hmm. You have some of the most scandalously ugly architecture you could imagine. As soon as you step out of the historic centers, especially when you're talking about liturgical space, it is unreal. I'll tell you a small, quick story. Where my grandmother lived, it was on the outskirts of this small little town. The town I grew up was 7,000 people, and she was outside of that, so it was very small. But they eventually built a little church there and created a parish. And the big pride that they talked about when you walked into this building that looked like it was ready to fall apart any minute, was that they had hired the local communist to design this. And isn't that great? Because now we have communists designing our churches.
Yeah.
and that was their claim to fame for this building. Which, incidentally, didn't even have an axis and had supporting metal columns right in front of the altar.
Wow.
It was almost like
I saw that kind of thing in Spain, too, now that you mention it. I remember the city center, they have these incredible, historic basilicas, and then you go to where people are really going to Mass if they are, and they're just awful. So, so what happened succinctly in the church that all of a sudden beauty became passe? When I got a tour here in the new cathedral here in LA, we went to see it, and we stood outside looking at what my students call Man Hands Mary, which is the statue supposed to be Our Lady of the Angels, but it's this, you know what I'm talking about, this androgynous figure that's over the door, and you can't tell if it's a man or a woman, and you can't tell whatever, and the guide said to us that the artist endeavored to put racial characteristics of every different race in this figure so that everybody would feel welcome. And I said, yes, but it's kind of ugly. And the woman looked at me and her eyes narrowed and she kind of waved with her hand and she said, oh, the church is not into that anymore. And so what happened, Enzo? And then we can continue, we don't want to be just on a downer here, but what happened?
No, of course.
Yeah.